You're about to listen to an archived episode of The Night Shift with Zeno Hiroman. This is brought to you commercial-free by the Surfcast Podcast. If you're interested in more historical, educational, and entertaining surf fishing content, check out weekly episodes of the Surfcast Podcast available today on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts, including www.surfcastpodcast.com.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dave Anderson. Most of you guys know Dave Anderson as the editor of a Surfcasters Journal. Since we started, he is as responsible for the quality of this publication as any of us is. And he will join us today on a podcast. Dave is leaving us. He is taking a position with the Fisherman magazine. We wish him luck, and we definitely are grateful for everything that he has done for us. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And also will be joining me my, co-founder, Tommy Corrigan. He will also, we'll do a triple treat here. And he's just here for comedic relief. Yeah, it looks like it. That's what it looks like. So, Dave, listen, I guess the first question is I'm going to ask is, to reflect back on all these years, doing the Surfcasters Journal.
It came up at the moment, it was the most perfect thing, because when I left the Fisherman the first time, I needed a place to land, and I didn't know where I was going to land. And I remember I called you and wrote an article, and then I got the column going, and then I kind of felt like I just pestered my way into the editor's position. I just kept telling you needed me, and then once you let me in, I really feel like it catapulted me to a new place. It's a quote unquote small publication, but I feel like the reach of SJ is just so huge, and being just so into surf fishing for so long. How could you pick a better place for me to be, and then you guys are so cool, and it's just such an easy environment. I don't know how I could reflect on those 10 years in one.
Well, let's put it this way. I can't spell English for shit. So with my Kringlish, we needed help, and you came in the right time. So let's just not, let's call it what it is. It was kind of a perfect marriage for everyone. And I really do appreciate everything that you did. Yeah, it was actually great.
Yeah, it was. I loved it.
So what is your new position at the Fisherman? What does that involve? Is it similar to SJ? You're going to be doing a lot of stuff for them?
It's pretty much the same thing. It's just content management.
But it's on a weekly basis, so it's a lot more involved there.
Yes. And, it came along at a good time again. We're looking to, get into a bigger home, and, they made it's an opportunity I couldn't pass up. It wasn't an easy decision, but I feel like it's the right decision. But I will always, I'll always miss you guys.
Oh, does it leave you enough time to fish?
More than enough time.
Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, Tommy, in case you don't know, Dave had a nice fish last week. I don't know if he told anyone, but by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be months from now, so nobody's gonna care. But I think he's got 47.
Yeah. It was I upgraded my plug personal best by 2 pounds. I got a 47 pounder the other day.
That's great, man. Congratulations.
That's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was unexpected. Middle of the day,
I was gonna say that picture looked like a middle of the day kind of fish, right?
Yeah, it was. It was 10:30 in the morning.
And it wasn't in a canal either.
Nope, not in the canal. It's pretty unknown spot. I've never seen anybody else there. I got clued in on it from a friend of mine who's a charter captain who finds fish in that area a lot. And I found my way down there one day. The first time I ever went there was actually with John Lee. And we went down there. I think we had 5 fish from 20 to 36 pounds, just kind of in the middle of nowhere. Since then, it hasn't produced a single fish for me and that was 2 years ago, but I keep going back. And then finally it gave up fish again. I got 5 again the other day. Most of them were in the 20-pound class, and then that big one.
This was on the top water?
Was it on the dock?
It was
on the dock.
Yes,
it was? Really?
Of course,
Oh, yeah.
of course.
Oh, man. Really? The dock, with all those shit that people throw, the dock, what is it, like a $8 fucking dildo looking thing?
Yeah, well, it's not $8, but it is very dildo-like, yes.
Yeah, it is. I remember the first time McKenna showed me in Cuddy Hunk. This was maybe like 10 years ago. And he's like, I'm going to show you something, but you cannot show anyone. This thing is called the dock. And you cannot show this. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, it's a Zara spook kind of, walk in a door kind of a thing. And I was like, all right, it wasn't really the way I fished, but he was in love with that thing, So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is. I always tell people it's the closest thing to a magic plug that I've found. It is. I got clued in on it in, I think it was 2006. And the same thing, the guy who, I had already started writing then. And the guy who told me about it said, you cannot write about this. Do not write about it. And I said, all right, I won't. I won't. And they told me where to order it. And back then you could order them from the website and you just order the unpainted blanks. So there's no hooks. No color, no eyes, no nothing, and they were like $9 or $6.
That's why I refer when I say $9 because I remember we were buying them then from like a freshwater website, and it was just blanks. It was blanks, yeah.
And I fished them for a long time. I used to fish them in the canal at slack tide, and everyone else would be sitting down drinking their coffee or looking at their phones, and I'd be pulling the fish out here and there, and guys would ride up and say, "What the hell is that thing?" And I used to tell them my uncle made it. My uncle makes it. You can't get one, but sure works.
But I mean, you're a plug guy. I mean, you are a well-known plug builder. For you to fish with that instead of something that you can make kind of speaks volumes too.
Well, I mean, I've always said, there's certain things I don't make because I can't make them better. So I can't make a better dock. I can't make a better 2-ounce Danny than Beachmaster. I can't make a better 3.5-ounce pencil than Wayne from Guppy, so I don't make those things. I fish those.
What is the proper retrieve for those docks types lures? Like, what do you like? There is no such thing as proper. That's what you like.
I mean,
what works for you?
I typically start it pretty slow, So I mean, I know this is a podcast, but I'll try to make noises. I try to make it kind of go.
Nice slashes. Dave's making slashes. Okay, yep. I'm gonna do the little color here.
But then, if I see something come up behind it, that's when I think maybe my method separates from other people's. I always think of it like the fishes. If they don't take it, I think that they're telling me like I'm not convinced. So I try to make it react as if it were alive. So if something boils behind a bunker, it's going to go, oh shit, and try to get the hell out of there. So I try to do that with the plug, and a lot of times that's when game time happens. And then the only other things that I do, once in a while, like we did on that video, sometimes I'll make it jump if something's on it, and then sometimes too, if they knock it clear of the water and it doesn't foul, I'll just hold it in place and almost just kind of try to make it vibrate there, just like really short, quiet zigzags. And a lot of times that will, I don't know, I think I'm trying to make it look like it's been stunned or something, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's typical topwater.
That first slash, which is usually a long one, does it happen when you take the rod and push it downwards, or do you pull it upwards?
I pull it up.
Okay.
And I think it's really important that when you do that, you don't take up that slack right away, because that interrupts the glide. So if you kind of take it up, you do that hard upward pop, and then you just let that slack fall, that gives it enough, leash to finish the glide, and then you catch up to it. And then once it, when you catch up to it, if you could see it in slow-mo, it turns, and then you jerk it again and it goes back the other way. And you just got to leave that little belly in the line in between each one to get the maximum glide out of it.
Do they come in different sizes?
They make two. They make a 9 and a 7. The 9 is so far superior to the 7 that it's not even in the same class.
You mentioned a magic word there, glide. That's another one of your things. Like not your thing, but you've always been infatuated, especially with like stabile stick shads and any kind of gliders, which I consider stick shads to be glide baits.
Yep,
I do. I don't know what other people do. You can put them in any categories you want. Why such a fascination? Was it because of the spots that you fished, or was it because they maybe gave you an opportunity to do more things than what other lures couldn't in your arsenal?
Well, I think like that's kind of a weird question because I like glide baits, but I don't use them that often. Like I think of Jerry Audet as the glide bait guy.
Yes, he is. Yes.
But I made a glide bait after I tried some other ones. I made it because I could tell that all the other ones were tested in swimming pools. They weren't tested in an environment where there was moving water or waves or anything like that. So when you put them into the situation where you thought you actually might get something to eat it, they'd just get tossed around like a potato chip and wouldn't do anything. So I made one that was heavier and one that I could control. And the reason that I liked it is because I could almost fish it like a darter, but I had complete control over the depth that I was fishing it at. So I could fish it in a rip and let it get down 7-8 feet and then keep it at that depth, instead of like I would with a darter, which you're limited by how far it will dive based on how it's designed. So that was more my motivation for kind of going that way with glide baits. I also work them a little differently. I almost work them like a pencil popper. Like I'm reeling constantly, like sort of a moderate speed, but I'm working my tip like a pencil. And it instead of getting that wide, like spook style gliding action, all that kind of short rhythmic jerking keeps it tighter. So it's almost more like a darter. And that's worked really well for me, especially fishing anything with a hard sweeper across current. It's been deadly.
Tommy, we need a video for this thing because Dave's hands are all over the place. He is in love with plugs, and you can just see it on his face where his hands are sliding and it's darting and it's gliding. And
I can't help it.
I got you.
I've been that way since I was a peanut. I've always been one of these talk with your hands guys.
And then how come? No. I appreciate the passion, but how come then you are one of the quietest guys in the world? You are one of the not least known, but you know what I'm saying. You
low key.
Yeah, Tommy, help me out here.
Low key.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because a guy actually called me today, and he described me as somebody who goes dark on the internet, and I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel any pressure to produce content on my own social media channel. I don't really care, like I enjoy using social media for the things that I use it for, but I don't feel like I have to promote myself. I've talked to some other guys who are obsessed with having, a couple more big fish every year that they've got to have those pictures to post. And I mean, to be honest with you guys, like even as someone who writes and needs to have photos, more than half the good fish I catch, I don't even take a picture of. I just put them back in the water. And it's just I always regret it afterwards. I will say that, but I don't know. It's not that important to me.
Is that even allowed, that not taking pictures of the fish? I thought you just have to post it like before it's even released.
I know. I mean, like that fish that we were just talking about, I took pictures of it because that was it was a exceptional fish, especially for when and where I caught it. But you won't see those pictures online for a long time.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. 47-pound fish is not an exceptional fish. 47 fish for most people is a fish of a lifetime, including myself. My biggest fish, I'm staring at it right here above my head, is about 47 something. So, yeah, that's more than an exceptional fish. What do you feel that speaking of, and I'm not hitting on anyone. I don't really care what people do. If you want to post pictures of a 14-inch bass, I couldn't care less about.
Yeah.
But what does the modern Surfcaster lock, not in a derogatory way, but what category we could use improvement in?
Well, I could think of a few different categories really, but I think the one that I go back to the most is just some level of respect for the spot. I feel like that's been totally lost. And that's one of the reasons why I quote unquote go dark on the internet, is because that was one of the things that frustrated me the most, was seeing photos and being like, I know where that is, and then just realizing how many of these other guys know where that is, and then going there at a place that I expect to maybe see one other guy and seeing 9 guys there. I know it's such a weird, it's just such a weird thing for somebody that does what I do for work. I basically teach people how to fish the way I fish and share my experiences. But at the same time, I try to instill in people the fact that they need to be quiet. It's very weird. But I feel that's the biggest thing that's been lost in surf fishing, is just that element of secrecy, and also the ability to fish for personal satisfaction. That's gone. It's all about, who takes this is you see, like I saw the other day, a guy took a photo of it was a really nice fish. I could tell it had to be 50 pounds, close to it anyway. And he took a cool shot that I never saw before, looking straight down on the head with his thumb holding the lip. And I was like, man, that's a cool shot. Like, I'm going to try to take a shot like that next time I get a big one, which of course I forgot to do it when I got that fish the other day. But since then, I've seen like 5 copies of that photo, different guys doing it with different fish. And so there's this feeling, I think, in the air, the social media air, that if you can become influential, you're going to like quit your job and be, Joe Surfcaster and somehow make a living out of it. And I think there's only one guy who's pulled it off, right? Skinner.
I don't think so. John's, what is it, scientist, Tommy? What is he? He works at Brookhaven National Lab.
Well, he's retired now, but...
Yeah, he's retired. And he puts out hundreds of videos a year that have millions of views that you pay tapes for. So, it's a supplement even for him. I mean... Yeah, I guess the only surfcasters that work off the sport is Alberto with his endorsements, and he works very hard on promoting whatever he does. But this is a very difficult sport to make a living in. Even on a boat side, Yeah. Never mind on a surf side. No, I can't see that being a reasonable expectation, to be honest with you. And as far as the pictures, it's remarkable. It's like people almost don't want to be. They don't want to be, how should I say, inventive, or they don't want to come up with their own ideas. You remember how many pictures of Albie do you have where the guy's holding the Albie in a camera like that? I mean, like, really, like a guys, machine gun. Is everyone's gonna do this? Like, it becomes to the point where you're like, really, another shot, the same shot. So that's kind of cool that the guy took a shot, but I'm not surprised that there were 5 other people doing the same thing. I don't know. I
mean, and this, we're talking within days, it's not even a thing anymore. It showed up in my Explorer page on Instagram, and I didn't even look who took the shot. I wish I did. I mentioned his name here, but it was, I don't know.
Every time I went in Explorers, there's just a lot of chicks in there. I'm not an Instagram guy, but I don't know how they got there. Well, that's a conversation for another day.
Well, why do you think I was on the Explorer page?
Well, the conversation, but this is an interesting conversation because, I interviewed Steve Campbell recently, and what you were talking about now is a whole different world to what I spoke to him about, where I understand what he asks or he tells me, like, I cannot relate to what I see. And if you would take that as just that sentence alone, and you would go and says, well, the guy's such a dick. What do you mean you can't relate? But if you got the whole story, how they live their lives, of course you couldn't relate to this. This is a whole other world to the older gentleman, I assume. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just different. We kind of span the both generations because, I was there at the end of that one and I'm here at the beginning of this one. But this is a whole different world in the way people looking at sport. They catch the fish the same way. The catching of fish hasn't changed.
I saw it coming. I remember, back in like 2005, 2006, like I actually specifically remember the first like really good hit I got into, 2 nights of like really nice fish up to 40 pounds. It was right on my birthday, actually. So the anniversary is this weekend, the 13th and the 14th. And I was with my old fishing partner who now lives in Florida, Dave Perillo, and we just...
Dave lives in Florida?
Not Dave DeLuz. He's
Okay.
That's the thing. I only fish with Daves. But,
I was gonna say there's a lot of Daves.
yeah. But so he, we got into those fish and we posted a few pictures on SB, stripebass.com. And, that was like the first fishing social media, I guess, and there were a couple of guys that just blatantly said they were going to look for camera flashes, and I saw it getting worse. And that was actually why I started that tournament, Go Tight, because I thought maybe if enough people got involved in that, it would give them a reason to want to be secretive again, because I was attributing all of the secrecy from the past to commercial fishing and the fact that there was dollar signs attached to these fish. And so these guys are being very quiet and secretive about it in an attempt to, make more money and keep other guys from pulling money out of their pockets. It didn't work. All it turned into was a fish finder. Guys would just lurk on the Facebook page and try to figure out where the guys were fishing. And I did everything I could to make it impossible, but it just, what could you do?
But do you guys really think that the only reason the old times were secretive is because of the money placed on a fish head? Because
I don't know.
I do know a lot of guys that fish they never sold a damn fish in their life, and they were as secretive as anyone. Yeah. Fred Schwab being the main guy, right, Tommy?
Yeah.
I mean, I have always been very secretive about it. And that's why, I started fishing with DeLuz so much, is because we had that same mindset. People always would say about us, man, you don't give us anything. And we were perfectly happy to fish for the satisfaction, the personal satisfaction, or, what we kind of considered every good fish we got as a team victory. And that was good enough. I remember one time we entered the Red Top tournament, which doesn't happen anymore, but, and it was a kill tournament. And I got lucky and I got a 50 pounder that night, and I, killed it, which I kind of regret now, but it was, it was 2012. It was not
There's
quite
a lot of fish around. Let's just
a lot more fish back then, and I never kill a lot of fish, but whatever. I don't need to qualify it. I did it. And I won the tournament. I won $500 cash. And when I brought it to Red Top to have it weighed in, there was a woman hanging her 18 pounder on the scale, from the canal. So I just laid it on the pavement behind her because I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I thought maybe she wouldn't even see it. Well, she turned around and she just about fell down. And then a huge crowd gathered, So then I had to explain myself. So I just went with the first guess. The guy, hey, did you get that in the canal? Yep. Oh, wow, that's a hell of a canal fish. Where'd you get that? Down by the Bourne Bridge? Yeah, that's where I got it. I knew it. I knew there was going to be fish like that there last night. Yeah, you should have been there. That's, it's the only one we got, but it's a good one, and that was more publicity than I wanted, and it was amazing how fast word traveled. I didn't call anybody, and then Wayne Hess called me. He's like, hey, is it true? And I was like, yeah, it's true. And then, it's just more and more people. It's amazing how fast news travels these days. And that's already 10 years ago almost.
Well, to be fair, your handle used to be a canal man on social media.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
So you must have spent a lot of time there.
I used to spend a lot of time there. Yeah, I did.
Well, what does that used to mean term? Explain.
So
you don't anymore.
I fell out of love with it. Yeah. I still go a few times a year, but it's usually more of I get a text from someone saying, hey, I'm going to the canal in the morning. You want to go for a bike ride? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It's more of a social event at that point. I don't know. I don't like the attitudes. There's a lot of, I'm just going to be honest. I feel like it's just not the same place. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of heavy crowding. there's so many guys that they see you on a fish and they just walk right down on top of you, and they'll work together in a group to try to squeeze you out. And it's not fun. I get aggravated, and then I realize I'm not having fun. I'm supposed to be having fun. I don't think
there's anything wrong with it. I see you struggle to find the words and not say something wrong that's going to piss somebody off. And I get where you're coming from, but I'm the same way. I don't understand why people can't accept that you fall out of love with certain places. Like there's places that I used to fish, I just don't want to fish anymore. Yep. I just don't enjoy it. I enjoy other stuff more than I enjoy that. But for some reason, people don't seem to. Well, you used to be like, you were the daughter guy. Now you fish with whatever that might be, pencil popper, buck. Wait, you are the daughter guy. You why are you using pencil poppers? Like, right. Or you were the photo guy, or you were the video guy, you were the drone. Why can't you just be whatever the hell you want to be at any time? Yep. I mean, if you obviously you're doing well for yourself, fishing whatever you want to fish. Yeah. I think Canal is a fascinating place. I have zero interest in fishing. I love the scenery thing. I honestly, I do. I love watching people fish there.
Yep. I've had so much fun there, Z. I can't even tell you. Like I used to feel like that was like my second home. My whole summer was dictated by those tides. And I never missed one. I would go every day, 5 days in a row. Every time those tides came around, I was never a jigger. I mean, I would do it now and then, but I wanted to catch fish on topwater plugs. That's the reason I went, and I knew it presented a really good opportunity to get big ones. I got a lot of nice fish out of there. I made a lot of great friends there. I met Wayne there, and a lot of other great guys. And but since the crowds really came in the numbers that they have, I just went sour on it. And I'm not being careful, to not to piss somebody off. I just don't know how to say exactly what I mean. I just lost it. It's an it's not you, it's me situation. You know what I mean? So
Tommy's been fishing some spots that I don't even know if other human being ever stepped on, and he's having a great time. Not because he's bored, but because he's at the point of his life that he's just into exploring, no?
Yeah, I just want to get into different stuff, man. That's it. Like, I don't want to be around other people. I want to have my own spots to myself. That's it.
That's how I am.
Whatever it takes to get there, that's how I'm going to do it.
Yep, I agree. That's like my favorite thing. I mean, I love catching fish, and I love all the things that go along with fishing, including, the seeing shooting stars and all that stuff. But the thing that I like the most is figuring out an area and then going there and having it work. There's nothing more satisfying than that to me. And if it's if it's a place that nobody else walks, even better. I got one on my radar right now that it's very difficult to get to. I've only been there once, but it's one of those places I know it's going to produce. I just got to figure out an easier way to get there. You and
Tommy should talk after the podcast, because I believe Tommy's got he's got a truck, van, a kayak, a boogie board, I believe a drone and a helicopter. So however you want to get to whatever you want to get, Tommy, and a bike. Don't forget the electric bike. So he can get you there. How do you pick and analyze your spots? How do you go about it, especially new spots?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. I mean, a lot of it starts with
can't be all softballs, Dave.
No, definitely. I like the hard ones, but most of the time it starts with a chart or a Google Earth, and then it goes to scouting from there, and then if I like what I see, obviously, then I'm gonna then I'll explore it further. But sometimes you look at a chart, you say, wow, that drop off is pretty close to shore there. And then you look at Google Earth and you're like, well, okay, I see how I can get there. There's a lot of big boulders there that I could get out on. It almost looks like there's a rip forming there, but then you get there and you're like, this place sucks, But that's another thing that I think is different about older surfcasters like me, the big old man here, and the newer ones. I'll go and check some place out without ever hearing anything about it. A lot of new people seem to want to have it confirmed for them by somebody else first, which, plays into my hands, plays into Tommy's hands, But that's where it all begins. And then from there, it just, if I like what I see and I believe that it's going to produce, then I just put in as much time as I can around the tidal clock, and try to make sense of when the timing is. I always feel like I can find a window, and I have several spots. Like the spot I fished last night, it was a late tide, but I knew when the window was. I fished from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. and then I came home and slept on the couch so I didn't wake my wife up when I got home.
Yeah, it's the first time you ever done that.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's what I try to narrow it down to. I try to narrow it down to a window that has the highest probability. I like patterns. I like things that are repeatable. I like feeling like I'm pretty sure that I'm going to catch fish. And that's how I try to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to even try to figure out how long to give a new spot in order to see what is productive. You can fish that spot on every damn tide and win, and you didn't fish it on one wind that's productive. It might be. Having said that, my opinion is that most of the spot will be consistent on a lot of different things, and then it'll be really great on something else, and that's makes it a great spot. Where occasional spot where you'll get occasional fish is a very difficult spot to keep going back to it, because it's too many dry nights. And that's, when you have a kid like you do or I do, as Tommy does, you only have so much time to go to a spot where 7 out of 8 times you get skunked.
Right.
It's like I have a spot right by home, and Tommy knows the point. Look out here. Sometimes there's fish, but man, this thing is weedy 7 out of 8 nights. It's a very difficult thing to get excited and go down there. How long you stay with a plug when you fish the spot? Like do you change a lot plugs, or?
That's another, it depends on the spot. Like the place I fished last night, I changed plugs, but I just changed to the same plug in different colors. It was more because I was testing out a new configuration of that same plug. So I wanted to swim a whole bunch of them to make sure that I didn't just get a good one. But that spot for me has only produced fish on 2 plugs or eels. So it's deep. It's deep. It's got a hard rip, not a super hard rip, but it's got a pretty good rip coming off the end of the point. And so I fish deep swimmers and I fish heavy needlefish there, and that's it. But I just feel like I've narrowed it down to that. Like I've learned that in that spot, I got to be really deep or I'm not going to catch. So like if it's really rough, I can't throw eels because they most of the time will get swept beyond the strike zone before they swim far enough down to get there. So I have to throw a deep swimmer that I can hold in that rip. And then, I throw the heavy needle if I don't have eels. I throw them up tide just like I would an eel, let them drift all the way down to the bottom. But if I throw like a super strike darter there, it's just casting practice. They're not going to eat it. They're down too far. But in other places, I really base plug choices on feel, so like a couple of weeks ago, I was fishing a spot, and I think I wrote about it in my column in this last issue. It's a darter spot. I've got tons of fish on darters there and some really nice fish. And, but for whatever reason, the super strike, which has been super productive there, it just didn't feel right. I threw it like 10 times and I'm like, that doesn't feel right. I couldn't get enough resistance. I don't know if the rip was slower than normal. I don't know what the reason was, but I put on a bigger darter with a wider lip and just a overall bigger profile, and then I could feel it. I could feel that it was doing the right thing. And it's not, you guys all fish darters. That the feeling isn't strong. It's not like fishing a metal lip or something where you're getting the drumming feeling back. It's hard to explain. It just didn't feel right. But I put that other plug on, and it was a slow night, but I did hook a really nice fish on that bigger darter, but came off. So, but
does what you build for the shows or to sell, not that you're a humongous seller or show guy, but
yeah,
what you build, does it differ a lot to what you like to fish?
No, I build those things for me first.
Really?
Yep. So like the flat glide needle, which is by far my most popular plug, I made that for a specific spot. And I mean, that's only half true. I made it at first. I was trying to make a super slow sinking needlefish, but it floated. And so I took the sides off to make it a little less buoyant, and I got it to sink. And then I was just reeling it in, and I gave it a twitch, and it did that big glide. And I was like, whoa, that's different. And so then I started to tweak it when I saw how well it reacted to current, because I have a spot that used to be really productive. It's not so much anymore. But it just it was shallow water. It's 5 feet deep or less. And it's just got a hard sweep from left to right. And we've pulled so many big fish out of there. And that needlefish has caught almost all of them.
Interesting. Now, I know, I see how passionate you are about plugs. We can go on for hours here. So we definitely have to have you back
anytime
on many other conversations about the specific plugs. But like when it comes to colors, you must have sick conversations with yourselves about the colors.
Well, it's funny because I don't put a lot of emphasis on colors. Like I've written about it and I'll say exactly pretty much what I say when I write it. I am not immune to a beautiful plug. I see them all the time and I buy them. But it's not because I'm like, that's going to work. It's more like that thing's awesome. Like I can recognize the work and the talent that goes into the paint job. And I roughly categorize plugs into very simple colors. I like light, dark, and bright. So I would be perfectly happy to have white, black, and parrot and call it a day. That's what I'm throwing 99% of the time. I have started to throw more yellow, which is kind of a new thing for me, but it has been working. But when I look at yellow and I look at white in the dark, I really can't tell the difference. So that's kind of what I base that on. Whether or not I'm right about the fish seeing it the same way that I see it, we'll never know. But I think color is all about confidence and really not very much about the fish.
And how much is the confidence a part of, catching fish? Like
it's everything.
Yeah, well, I knew we were going to go there.
It's everything, man. Yeah, you can get lucky. We've all done it. You've been checked out, right? You've been fishing and been like, this sucks. And then you're like, I don't want to be the guy that says we got to go home. And then your buddy says he got a bump and you're like, fuck, now I have to stay another hour. And then, so you're not even trying and all of a sudden, oh, you're on. But when you're engaged, especially it's happened to me a bunch of times where I've been checked out and then I get a bump and then something changes in my mind. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then you fish with confidence and you start catching fish right away. And I think that has a lot to do with, at least for me, I'm fishing best when I'm picturing what the plug is doing rather than thinking about the fact that, I forgot to mow the lawn again today. I probably should do that tomorrow. And, oh, that's right, she has dance class. I'm going to have to go get her, so I should probably go home early so I'm not too tired. When you start thinking about all that other stuff, you're not fishing anymore, But when you're fishing, when you're confident, when you're thinking about it, when you're feeling it, it happens because you're engaged. So I really think confidence is everything.
Define confidence. Define it.
Well, you've got to believe in what you're doing, So you got to believe in that plug. You got to believe in the color, whether or not that matters. Who knows? I have the most confidence in parrot most of the time. That's the first color I usually throw. But I think the confidence is sort of a combination of that, of believing in what you've got and being engaged with it. So believing that whether, what you're picturing is what's actually happening. So that I do that a lot. Like if I feel myself checking out, I'll start to think about, all right, what is this plug doing exactly? Like a good plug for that is like a heavy needle. You got to get that way down, and fish it along the bottom, but you don't want to hang it up. It's almost like fishing a bucktail in reverse. That's what I call it, So you get it down, you tighten up on it, you let the current pick it up, then you drop your tip and the plug dips back down to the bottom, and then you repeat that. And what I picture, is a bait fish emerging from the bottom over and over again. And that's what I try to keep that in my head. Like the first time I ever got that, I was fishing with my buddy Rooney. I've written about this too. And he's the one who showed me how to load a super strike needle. And he was catching on it. And I was like, man, I got to get that down. So I started and I'm like, I know I don't have it right. It doesn't feel like I'm keeping it down. It feels like it's swinging in the current, so I'm like throwing further up tide. I'm trying to put more slack in the line. Finally, and I swear to you, this is exactly how it happened. I was like, I think I got it. Like I can feel it touch the bottom. I picked it up off the bottom. It touched the bottom again. Then all of a sudden, whoa! The first fish I got on that loaded plug was 37 pounds. So that gave me a lot of confidence in that plug. But that whole sequence of learning that, I've never lost it because, well, for one thing, because I had success, but it just built such an immense amount of confidence in that method and that I could do it and that I figured it out. It's empowering. I don't know. I feel like a pro wrestler or something, It's just like standing on the top of the ropes, screaming at the top of my lungs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, brother.
Bring it on. So somewhere I feel like a Hulk should be walking.
I am a real American.
It's funny though. I find it funny. Like every time Dave says it, obviously he only catches big fish because that's all I hear about it. But
well,
it's always no. Listen, I'm just breaking your balls. I'm not suggesting that. Okay, but what I do find funny is like a lot of guys that in the Cape, where you fish, it seems. And listen, you guys have had most of the big fish last few years. There's no question about that.
Except last year.
Well, last year, out of last 10 years or 10 years, you guys had the best runs. But it's all pounds. It's all pounds. There's no inches.
Yeah.
And then I go online and everything like west of, what did we say the other day, Tommy? Mystic? It's all inches.
South of
Yeah, the guys with the mayonnaise jars. Just south of Mystic or whatever it was. By
Stanford.
The way, do you use mayonnaise jars for the eels?
No, I just use a soft-sided cooler.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. That's a step up, Tommy.
I wonder if that dock plug has a line, like a geographic line where it's used. It's got to be, right? Because they're not really used. Well, Skinner talked about it. That brought a little more interest to it. But I don't know if they're found. Like, I don't see a lot of people fishing them down here.
Well, I know, like I fished with my buddy on his boat in Jersey a few weeks ago, and they were throwing docks down there in Raritan Bay. And I know like a lot of guys who throw them like Western Sound, like from like the Throgs to like Hempstead Harbor over to Norwalk, like that little triangle area. A lot of guys throw them in there. And then, but they found their origins in the surf and in striper fishing in Newport. That's where they first came ashore here. And I know kind of the story, but it's kind of a blurry, who really found it first. Nobody really knows, but they really did originate from the saltwater edge.
Right. But hold on a second. Is there a reason? Is it possible that they're not as popular, let's just say on South Shore, Long Island or Jersey, because they're not as good in surf, meaning in the open ocean?
Well, no, I think they're great in the open ocean.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like Long Island is very rooted in tradition, surf casting wise.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so maybe that, like whenever I see guys, like the canal is a good example, you ride down the canal, I can always tell the guys who are from Long Island by the way they work the pencil popper, because they all work it the same. They all do that, like choking the snake and trying to shake this working as fast as possible. And, so that to me kind of speaks to that tradition. Right, because they don't have
55 fucking miles an hour current swinging a pencil popper around. That's why.
Right. But even when I fish a pencil in calm surf, I fish it slow.
Right.
And
we are from New York. We are a little quicker than most of the country.
True enough.
Okay.
It's the hustle and bustle. I get
listen, I get it. I just thought maybe that the docks were more effective in a calmer water. I don't know. I'm not a dock guy.
It's not like the best plug. Like I wouldn't fish it in a howling nor'easter at Montauk.
Well, obviously, those are special conditions. But I'm talking about 10 miles, 15 miles an hour southwest wind where you have a white water coming off the bar. Is that a proper condition for those kind of plugs?
It would definitely work in that situation, but it might not be the best choice. It wouldn't have the same traction that a pencil would have, for sure.
So you want a less of a roll for those kind of plugs. You want more of a cutty hunk waters.
Yes. Yeah.
Where you don't have that roll at all times.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. And again, then it would make sense. Why would it be better in that Newport, Cape Cod, Connecticut? All those waters are fast and deep, but they don't have a consistent roll.
Right.
Because I feel like that roll would really screw up the action of your dock in a surf.
And it definitely would. Like, you wouldn't want to fish it through breaking waves. It would foul a lot.
That's what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. But deeper water, moving water, and, anything, I really like it to have like a pretty good chop. That would be like ideal. Like water moving left to right or right to left with a noticeable chop, wind against tide, but not too much wind. That would be ideal. And if I had to pick a perfect day, it would be cloudy, But
so you don't like sunshiny days, 90 degrees?
I mean, I have caught fish on sunshiny days on the dock, but my confidence, the big important C word, that it goes way down when it's bright and sunny.
Forget about the fact for a minute that you spent half of your life living around the moon tides of the canal, which you have, okay? And now you kind of gravitated to other things. How big of a part the moon tides play in the role of your decisions these days, considering you're not fishing the canal? Are they still as important?
Very, very important, yeah. I like to, I like dark. I think every surf guy, for the most part, wants it to be dark. And I like it when, I always feel like a big tide, when we get like a 5-foot tide. I don't know how big the tides get down your way, but, a 5-foot tide is like the biggest tide we get up here.
Yeah, on the moon.
And when I see that, I just feel like I feel like it's going to draw fish in closer to shore. I feel like it emboldens them a little bit. But I also, as I've gotten older and maybe wiser or maybe dumber, I don't know, but I think about how much water it's moving. So when you have a 5-foot tide, that's a lot more water that's moving, which translates to a lot more current, a lot harder current. Any place where that current is moving around obstacles, it's multiplied. So I get really excited for the moon tides. I always do.
I think Tommy found out that all these new places that he's really not familiar with them yet. Sometimes on the tides they get a little bit different than what he thought it was going to be, right, Tom?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out a couple.
I mean,
like,
that's
the fucking water's up to the foot dudes. I can't get my bike around. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it happens, but that's to me, that's all the fun part.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
100%. I agree 100%. I'm amazed what he does. But sometimes he'll text me in the morning. He's like, I had all these fish. I said, where did you sleep? I slept in this little pop-up tent in a wetsuit. I'm like, on the sand? He goes, yeah. I'm like, no, I can't. I can't, dude. I can't sleep on a wet sand in a wetsuit all night.
Not all
night.
I remember. I think it was my first trip to Cutty Hunk. It was a commando trip. And we got high tide was at like 8:00, so we got there off the last boat with John Paul, like, I don't know, 6:00, walked out there, pencil popped the last of the incoming, and then got dark. And, I don't know, around 2 a.m. it was dead low and the water wasn't moving at all. There was no wind and I was tired, so I cleared out a spot in the rocks and I did just what Tommy said. I fell asleep right there. I woke up covered in earwigs. They were all over me. Yeah. No, that's the last time I did that. Those Cutty Hunk earwigs too. They're special size.
No, Tommy was covered in ticks one year. I mean, covered, and I'm talking covered. But that was pretty bad. That we don't want to repeat that. No, all your story. I don't like either one of those.
The Stand By Me situation.
I have the poison ivy, the pleasure of poison ivy all over myself. So we all got something out of Cutty-Hunk.
Yep.
Oh man, that was rough. What did you? How do you find Cutty-Hunk to be now comparable to what it was?
I haven't been there in 10 years.
Oh, really? Has it been that
long? I've kind of lost interest in that too. But I am planning to go back there this year. I met a guy who lives out there, and he was like, "You can come out and stay, and this and that." So I actually may go in July. I'm kind of hoping I do, because it is one thing about Cutty-Hunk that I will say is that I don't think I can achieve that level of relaxation anywhere else. I mean, you literally can't do anything but sleep or fish, and there's no cars, unless you take that one Zuzu Trooper.
Yeah, considering how many times we invited him to come, and now he's coming when he doesn't work with us anymore. Obviously, it was us and not the place.
No. I never went to Cuddy and had like a phenomenal night. I had one night that was good. And then all the other times I've gone there, I've really had to gut it out to get fish. And even like one time, I think it was the last time I went, DJ Muller had put together a trip for like 10 days. And he had 2 guys back out. So he said, you and Dave can come and, just pay me whatever you want. So we were like, what does that mean? But we're like, all right. So we went. And we stayed.
Did you have to pay DJ $500 to guide you, or just for the room?
No.
Or for the room?
That was the thing. I mean, we stayed far away from everybody else, but it had been really good for like 3 or 4 days prior to that. And then a hurricane went by offshore and kicked in some swell for about 6 hours. Fish were gone. So we got out there. We stayed 2 days. The canal went off while we were there. And I remember saying to Dave, let's just leave and go to the canal. We had the week off. We had already taken it off from work. And that was before either of us had kids. So it was just like, go do what you want, So we bid DJ farewell and probably left him with a bigger bill than he was hoping to have. And, went and smashed fish at the canal for 5 days.
I think I do remember that story. Also...
You might have even been out there then, because I remember the guy... I think his name was Dick. He was he's an older guy
from Rhode Island,
bucktail guy, and he was like slaying fish on the bucktails.
He was with a float.
Yep,
bucktail with a float. He was there with his son. That's the guy, Tommy, that lit up that
the world's brightest flashlight.
Yes, we were in what was that? What was it? High Flyer? Was it High Flyer the name of that cove?
I think so.
Yeah, Tommy and I are up in a cove. We're nailing fish on every single cast. They weren't big fish. 12, 15 pounds, but it was every cast. And we're comfortable. There's no one on the island. And there's a light comes up top of the cliff and he's looking down. And all of a sudden, this gigantic lantern comes on. And we were like, whoa, we started cursing at the guy. And the guy started running. It was just the scene was bad. But I mean, he had some light on. That was he lit up the whole hole.
We gave him the classic New York, shut that fucking light off.
Okay, I didn't want to say that, but yes, that's exactly what happened. No, we had some good night. What I enjoy about Cutty-Hunk, it's not. I mean, obviously, there's certain amount of cachet there that you feel like there's like biggest fish in the world on the next cast over.
Yep.
But also, I don't think I've ever seen Tommy as relaxed in any place as I do in Cutty-Hunk, because I think your mind is like, I'm not getting off this island. There's nowhere to go. I'm here for these days. There's nothing else to do. And it's just like a Zen mode while you're not fishing. And, there's no time to bitching. The next night can be 1,000 times better. I mean, obviously, sometimes the things are out of your control, but that just, and the place looks fishy. Like, it doesn't matter where you go.
Boy, does it. And the history, I'm a big history guy. That's why I love arrowheading too. I mean, just so like when I do swim out to a rock at Cutty-Hunk and I get up on it and I kick the weeds out of the way and there's a rusty pole there, I kind of feel like I'm standing in the footprints of, the first surf fishermen. And that, I don't know why, but that kind of does something for me, I just think
considering you both are like insanely successful arrowhead hunters, that not a lot of people know about it, but I mean, enough people know about it, but Tommy's finding some real shit lately. And you've been there. Like, you guys start your own podcast, just arrowhead?
Dave doesn't like to talk about it.
Really?
So, yeah. He's squirming right now. The fact
it's getting too popular, it's just
really too many people finding out about.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those. It's another one of those things. It's kind of like surf fishing, except that they're not making arrowheads anymore.
Right.
So and there's a lot of same thing. Luckily, most arrowheaders are very secretive. So, but you put 10 bodies on a spot, they might find 90% of what's there. You know what I mean? Yeah, but yeah. I do really love it. It was something that I wanted to do my whole life, and I never could find one. And then a friend of mine, just kind of in passing, Charlie Gregory, Charlie, he just said, "Oh, my friend used to find them down the street, from my house." And I was like, "Really? Down the street from your house, huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, So I went down there, and I had, it was when Lila was 2. I was carrying her, and I'm like, "Here, play over here," and I'm looking, and I did. I found one that was broken. And that lit the flame, and then I started to get a little bit of a understanding of what to look for. And I started finding them in places that I had been hundreds of times. And I was like, man, how many of these have I stepped on, And then it just lit me up from there. I mean, I have an obsessive personality anyway, surprise, surprise. But, I've found, I don't know, hundreds of them. And, it's still
interesting. Because the best fishing spots usually were always the best fishing spots.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? So a couple thousand years ago, there would have been native people on the same point that you are, thinking about the same stuff. You know what I mean? It's
absolutely.
Cool. It has cool parallels, the two hobbies. You know what I mean?
It does. And it has that same lottery rush. You go fishing, you're hoping to get a rush. You're going to hook up and you're going to be like, yeah, and when I find one, I get that same rush. It's like, yes, I don't know how to describe it, but I get that same, I don't know, like adrenaline rush almost. It excites me. I don't know. I guess I'm an excitable guy, even though I'm quiet.
This is about as excited I've ever seen Dave, so this is kind of cool. And Tommy is turning into like a Skinner level Google map analyzing, where he's trying to draw me maps of where he should go, and I'm like, wow, I mean, this takes some research. By the way, before I let you go, I do know that you got back into freshwater big time last few years. You still in it?
Oh yeah, big time.
Does it help your game a lot? Does it help?
I think it does. I think actually surf fishing helped my freshwater game more than my freshwater game has helped my surf fishing. But there's some mindset things, just I've kind of gotten really into the throwing big baits for largemouth, which, I'm marginally successful at. It takes a lot of casts to get a decent fish, but I enjoy it in the same way that I enjoy fishing a big rig deal or something like that. So in that aspect, it does keep my mind on that same plane for a larger part of the year than I've had in the past. But I think really it's more just staying in practice of just fishing and thinking about fishing. And so in that way, I do think it does help. And I always say fish or fish, so if you're going to fish a pond from shore for largemouth, I fish it the same way I fish the surf. I look at the points, I look at the inflows, I look for drop-offs and things like that, and I fish them the same way, and I'm generally successful. And I used to be big into freshwater before I found the surf. I grew up on a really good bass pond. And once I found stripers, I thought, largemouth, those are like bait fish now. But then I kind of learned many years later, after giving up on freshwater fishing, that it's all fun, and it's all it uses all those same parts of the mind. And so I guess this is a really long answer of saying, yeah, I think it does help my game, but maybe not in the way that you expect it to.
Listen, I fished for roosterfish in Mexico, Costa Rica, and stripers. To me, the way I would want to fish all the time is 7-foot rod and a 1/2 ounce bucktails chasing weak fish. That's what I would like to do. Obviously, those opportunities are few and far between.
Yeah.
But if I could pick the way that I want to fish, it shouldn't would be an 11-foot rod with a wetsuit getting my ass kicked, which, by the way, I enjoyed a lot of my life, and I still do to some extent. But again, you go through these different stages. Listen, I want to thank you, first of all, for everything that you've done for us for all these years.
Thank you.
I love having you on a podcast. We're going to have you again because you are the most dedicated plug mind that I know, and you have so much to share. So it's kind of cool. Like I can 1,000 questions that I want to ask you, specific plugs. I just don't want to put it all in one podcast.
Now, if people want to get in touch with you to buy some of your plugs,
yep.
Surf Asylum, that's the name, right? So how do they do that?
The best way, media, right? Yeah, the best way is to wait till the wintertime. I don't build a lot in the summertime. It gets to be like 8 million degrees in my shop. And but my Instagram is probably my best way. It's Striper Brain, on Instagram.
Yeah, I think we'll put the link in the show notes because, a guy might be listening to this in January, not necessarily listening to now.
Right.
Be like, then we might want to plug. So Striper Brain on Instagram.
Yep.
Follow you, they or DM you if you wanted to know something.
Yep. Slide up in his DMs.
That's right. And if, sometimes I'm not good about noticing those messages that are like pending or whatever, like people that I don't follow back yet or something like that. So if you message me and I don't respond, just respond to a post that I made. Just say, hey man, check your DMs, and then I'll go and find you.
Dude, you can't be worse than I. I just DM the first guy today. That was my first DM, and I had Instagram for years. It was the first time I ever sent a message to anyone. I was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. So, okay, I'm a little bit embarrassing. Anyway, Tommy's the Instagram guy. I am not. Dave, we love you. Thank you. Appreciate everything that you've done, and we'll see you on the next podcast, okay?
Sounds good. Hey,
Thanks, Dave.
I feel the same way. It's been a great ride, and I really appreciate, you guys putting your faith in me for all that time. So thank you, and we'll talk to you guys soon.